known as the Baskerville family's hound, Vikir van Baskerville, who was wrongly framed by his family and father even though he was loyal to them, was sentenced to death by guillotine. Vicir, at the moment of his death, thought to himself that if he were to ever live again, he would hunt down his prey no longer as a hound again. An unsettling scene is introduced to Vicir as he tries to make sense of his surroundings, feeling that his body was heavy and in an unknown setting to him. He thought that he was in hell. In the grand estate of the Baskerville family, babies are seen in their cribs, crying and making noises. A man is introduced as the patriarch of the Baskerville family. He comments that the babies were insignificant. He walks through the room, commenting that the babies gathered this time were trash. As he walks, he notices Vikir being silent as compared to the other babies. He orders the servants to bring the babies to the cradle of swords. The servants obey. Vikir recognizes the man as the main culprit behind his death in his previous life, Hugo le Baskerville. Seeing Hugo's younger appearance, the MC concludes that he had regressed to back when he was a baby. Recalling his past life, he was a hound, born from an illegitimate family, while receiving training in a poor environment. Hounds must be devoted to missions that include assassination, intelligence, ambush, and others. A hound simply takes care of dirty work. This was so that the Baskerville could remain the best amongst the 7 families. The MC remained loyal because he wanted to be acknowledged by the family and Hugo. However, 10 years after the gate to the demonic gate was opened, even with the victory of the humans against the demons, the reward our MC was given was being put down like a simple dog. The main reason behind his execution was that he knew too much. MC clenches his fist, swearing to never live that life again. MC wanted to take revenge immediately but was unable due to his baby's body. He rolls around angrily. He realizes that he needs to become stronger and that the Cradle of Swords was the perfect opportunity. The Cradle of Swords was a trial that every child in the Baskerville family must go through. Children are thrown into a maze of swords, where they need to reach the Styx River to be assessed for their talent. The Styx River was a legendary river that turns children's bodies into iron but is limited to the number of children it can affect. The MC recalls that the fastest route to the river was a straight path out of the helix-shaped wall of blades. The MC crawls past the swords, remembering that in his past life, he could not receive the effect of the river, making sure that this time was different. For men are watching, as the MC dunks himself into the river, wanting to keep it all to himself as long as possible. The MC begins to sink into the river. The water seeps into his wounds, being first had its advantages. The MC covers his mouth to endure as long as he can regardless of the pain. 2 servants are shouting to the MC to come up of the water else he dies. Hugo simply laughs. He asks Barrymore, the head butler, how much time has passed. Barrymore replied that around 7 minutes have passed. Hugo is amused at the fact, stating that the MC might die since 7 minutes have passed. Hugo calls out to the MC, asking him to come out. The MC ignores his calls and continues to absorb the power of the river with all his might. He loses control, and with his eyes gone white, he continues to endure the pain before blacking out. Hugo holds the MC by the foot, stating that staying in the river was enough for the baby and that he even drank its water. Hugo notices that the MC had already grown his teeth. Hugo asks Barrymore what the child's name was. Vicir van Baskerville. Barrymore replied. Hugo, with a smile on his face, speaks the MC's name, Vicir, stating a very greedy son had been born. While being upside down, the MC continues to plot his revenge against Hugo, waiting to sharpen his canines for the time when he can rip his head off, making the Baskerville family disappear into history. Vikir van Baskerville was known to be a genius at the age of 8 but was considered normal in his family. At 20 years old, he took on the assassination, espionage, and conquest-type missions. At 29 years old, he felt the limits of his swordsmanship compared to the others in the direct lineage of the family. At 30 years old, the demonic realm gate was opened, marking the beginning of the Demon's Clan invasion. At 35 years old, he endured the era of destruction, slaughtering monsters left and right. At 39 years old, the war came to an end with human victory. At 40 years old, Vicir was finally rewarded for his loyalty. The reward is defamation, false accusation, and the guillotine's blade. Vicir opens his eyes, looking at the ceiling, realizing it was a nursery. He flips over in excitement as this meant that he had successfully absorbed the power of the Styx River. A servant approaches and places a box in the crib of Vicir, saying why the madam would give such a thing. Vicir notices and wonders why anyone would give him a gift. The box opens slowly. Vicir is taken back, as a long dark figure slithers out of the box. The Vicir recognizes it as vipers called bloody mambas, thinking that the madam sent those here to kill him. Knowing who madam was, as few were called that in the family. The vipers hissed at the Vicir. Vicir quickly grabs both vipers by the throat while smiling widely like a blood-driven hound, as he expected such treatment from the Baskervilles. He strangles the vipers with force, thinking to bring down the family with his own 2 hands. Blood stains are seen on the bedsheet of the crib. The next day, the servants are shocked, seeing the Vicir sleeping soundly whilst surrounded by the dead bodies of the vipers. Orders were given to execute the nannies after being tortured, who was on shift the night the vipers came, but the reason for their appearance remained unknown. Only Vicir knew the truth. 8 years later, Vicir is sitting in class, listening to a lecture. The teacher talks about the different levels of swordsmanship. Sword beginners are those unable to use mana. Sword experts were those who could use even a little bit of mana. Sword graduators were those that could emit mana in a liquid-like aura form. The final level, where aura is solid and its form freely changeable, is called the Sword Master. He noted that the strongest member of the Baskervilles, Sir Hugo, was at the Sword Master level. The children are in awe of this fact. Vicir thought to himself that he needed to regain his strength just like in his previous life before his coming-of-age ceremony. The teacher notices Vicir being lost in thoughts and highlights his achievements. Having a strong body due to diving in the Styx River for 7 minutes. And that teaching him one thing would lead him to understand 100 things, being more talented than the others, knowing the patriarch would be happy with this. While Vicir thought of how long it would take to kill Hugo at the age of 8, a set of triplets grins widely as they stare at him. A hand shoves Vicir as he is called Garbage Van. It was the triplets. Having heard the weird rumors about Vicir being in the river for 7 minutes and strangling 2 vipers when he was a baby, they approached him. Vicir remains silent as he recalls his memories of these 3. Knowing that they were the ones to stab him when he was running away due to the defamation in his previous life. They were called the Hugo le Baskerville Trident. We'll simply call them high, middle, and low. They shouted at Vicir to stop lying, stating that they didn't like him. Knowing they'll be troublesome in the future, Vicir decides to put them in their place now. High points a knife at Vicir, stating that his body was like steel since he was in the river for so long, making him immune to injuries from blades. High asked if he could test it. High calls Low. Low covers Vicir's mouth to stop him from breathing, stating he would eat his hand if Vicir endures for 3 minutes. Vicir decides to play along with their scheme. 1 minute passes, as High and Middle believe that the rumor was fake. 3 minutes pass, and they realize Vicir was good. 10 minutes passes, and they were too stunned to speak. They decide to let Vicir go. A crunching sound is heard as Low looks at his hand, and blood appears. Vicir spits as Lo screams in pain. High and middle shout at Vicir asking what he was doing. Vicir, with bright red eyes, as he wiped the blood off his smile, repeated that they said they would eat their hand. High and middle refute back by saying they weren't scared of Vicir, but Lo was afraid as he held his bleeding hand. High and middle stare at Lo in disbelief. They attempt to leave to find a priest to fix Lo's hand, but the Vicir stops them. In anger, High stabs Vicir in the stomach, stating they were older than him. To his surprise, the knife didn't cut him. Vicir reminds them that being in Baskerville meant that power and talent are greater than age. High screams in pain as Vicir twists his hand. Vicir, in hound mode, grins widely and tells them to play till the end with him. High, in pain, shouts that the rumors were true as Vicir lets go of his hand, giving him a punch straight to the face. Middle and Lo are shocked as High falls to the ground with his teeth broken and nose bleeding. Middle attempts to fight, but Vicir simply kicks him to the side with no effort. Get wrecked, son. Lo stumbles onto the ground, shocked at what had happened. Vicir tells him to not be afraid as he'll get better in no time once treated, but warns him as he picks the knife off the floor that he won't be leaving the room, and that they had to live with the discomfort of their own bodies at this rate. Vicir offers one of them a chance to leave the room as he stares at the knife in his hand. Lo asks which of them could leave, as the other two brothers hold their wounds. The knife is tossed to them as Vicir tells them to decide amongst themselves. Vicir slowly exits the room and mentions he can't wait too long and that it should be decided quickly. With blood-red eyes and a grin on his face, Vicir turns to them as the door closes, saying at least one of them should live. As the door closes, the triplets are left in shock, but soon stared at one another. Sounds of fighting and yelling could be heard behind the doors as Vicir stands to listen while smiling. The Triton of Baskerville have began to split. Barrymore reports to Hugo that another bloody situation have occurred with the Morgue clan in regards to the ruby mines, with the Morgue clan stating that it was theirs. Hugo says an opportunity in the future will allow them to discuss it properly and wonders what else was there to report. Barrymore reports that Vicir had scored the highest in the Titan exam. Hugo smiles happily at that fact and wonders when the practical exam will happen. In 5 days, Guardian Knights have left to prepare. Barrymore replies, making the fortress vacant now. Barrymore further reports about the fight between the young masters, stating that there were no deaths but that High's teeth were completely damaged, Middle's jaw was smashed in and Lo's left index finger was amputated. They had recovered from their physical injuries but their mental state was damaged. Hugo is surprised to hear that the triplets were fighting amongst themselves as they were close with one another. Barrymore states that Vicir was involved, causing Hugo to be alarmed. Vicir is seen standing before Hugo and Barrymore. He greets Hugo as the patriarch. Hugo tells Vicir about how he disabled the triplets. Vicir replies that they had received the proper medical treatment since then. Hugo states that their hearts were disabled. The triplets were no longer eating or talking together anymore, making their combination technique completely torn apart. Vicir smiles in silence. Hugo asks if it was wrong that Vicir turned his brothers into a total mess. Vicir replies he was simply stronger and wonders if the stronger person is ever wrong. Hugo shares that his brothers had came before and forgiven him. Vicir recalls a past memory, where the youngest daughter of the family that Baskerville ruined paid Hugo a visit. She had become a nun and told Hugo she forgave him and offered him a mass. Hugo's response was as Vicir speaks it out loud that forgiveness is just an excuse made by the weak who cannot seek revenge due to their lack of strength. Vicir's eyes glow red as he spoke those words. Hugo is elated at what was said as he smiles widely. Hugo recites the family motto, Only the strong will reign supreme. Weakness is a sin. Hugo rewards Vikir by allowing him to take any snack from the food storage. Just enough for him to carry. Vikir is happy and asks for chocolate as he thanks the patriarch for the reward. As he turns to leave, Hugo calls him his son and to do well on the interim evaluation, not to lose to direct descendants. Vicir is disgusted at what he hears but replies yes my lord anyways. Barrymore introduces the infamous chocolate enjoyed by the Gurmans of the Morg clan, saying it's the highest quality which was hard to get. Vicir declines it, saying he needs cacao beans that have a rich aroma. Barrymore and the chefs were confused at the request. Cacao beans colored purple called bloody beans were given to Vicir, each bean being able to produce 100 liters of chocolate. Vicir tastes them and is appalled by their taste. Barrymore wonders to himself that Vicir must really like chocolate to eat such bitter beans on their own and that he was brilliant for finding a way to get chocolate even with the restrictions placed by the patriarch. The chef asks if he wants to process the beans. Vicir declines and takes them as is. Barrymore wonders if Vicir had such peculiar taste. However, Vicir did not get the chocolate to eat but to use them in the practical exam 5 days later. Up in the mountains, Vicir stands, grinning widely knowing that a huge catastrophe would occur that has never happened in the clan before. Children of the Baskerville family are put through strenuous events and early education from a young age. Being able to take their first steps meant they had to run up a steep mountain, never allowed to lie down or be on their stomachs. Time to sleep is only ever with a monster corpse to adjust to tough environments. When completed, they turn 8 years old, starting their deadly evaluation. Bringing us to the practical evaluation, which is a survival exam. The young masters are gathered in a territory far end of the Le Rouge-et-Noir mountain. Pavlov, the instructor of the exam, instructs the masters on what needs to be done. Survive for 1 month while hunting large and strong monsters. 10 points were given for surviving. 30 if they survive without being disabled. Failing others and surviving 50 points. Surviving after beating a monster, 70 points. If all conditions mentioned were done, 90 points. Stealing badges from others make their points yours. Dying results in 0 points. 100 points do not exist. Pavlov reminds them of Hugo's lesson that a swordsman dies when they become arrogant. He advises them not to leave the designated area as the mountain contains many undiscovered things. During the exam, shadow dogs will hide and grade them. Gossip spreads amongst the candidates as they talk of the rumors about Vicir, wondering if he was going to be good at the practical as well. Vicir smiles as he remembers the mountain. The triplets avoid looking at him. Pavlov rings the bell, marking the start of the exam, and praying for their fortune. The young masters instantly vanished, each with a plan of their own. The triplets argue with one another. The killing was not prohibited as it resulted in deducting points. Pavlov smokes a cigarette knowing that the shadow dogs will keep casualties to a minimum. A shadow dog is seen following Vicir, wondering where he was going, looking forward to Vicir's skills due to his previous achievements since young. Vicir arrives at a huge tree, noting that the soft ground is best. He decides to live and take a break here as the shadow dog watches him. Shadow dog is shocked at him taking a break. Vicir gathers wood and is building things like in Minecraft as the others fight amongst themselves. The shadow dog is in disbelief as Vicir simply was gathering resources and wonders if he plans to just hide here. He decides to leave. Vicir takes note that he had left while reminiscing about the past. Before, a subordinate had told Vicir that cacao beans make fish less smelly and that bloody beans were the best. Vicir stares into flames and smoke knowing he had finished preparing. Deciding to start hunting as pits of spears are seen surrounding him. A few days have gone by as Vikir walks into the restricted area. Back when he was a scout, he could walk around here causally. He notes a burning smell and finds burning poop. Yes, poop is on fire in this world. Meaning only one monster has that kind of poop in this area. Vikir is happy to find what he was looking for. A beast with flames in its mouth stands above Vikir. It was a hellhound. The hellhound was a beast that swallowed the hellfires of the oil world, causing its body to become one with flames. Vikir was barely able to defeat one at the age of 18 in his past life. Being 8 years old now, it was impossible for him to defeat it now. However, Vikir, thanks to his past life, he knew a way to beat it. He dashes towards the hellhound, knowing that one of its weaknesses was moving in straight lines only, making it hard to change directions but easy to dodge. The hellhound is stunned that Vikir dodged. Vikir opens a bottle with water, spraying it across the ground as it was another weakness for hellhounds. They could not step across any volume of volume. This causes the hellhound to avoid the water on the ground as it runs towards Vikir. Thanks to the water, it exposes another weakness that all canines have, opening its mouth while running. Vikir takes a step back as the hellhound lunges at him with its mouth open, the exact moment Vikir waited for. Vikir flicks something into its mouth, and causally dodges the hellhound as it tries to circle back to Vikir. However, the hellhound feels something was wrong and stumbles to the ground whimpering. Vikir reveals that chocolate was poison to canines, and since one bloody being could make 100 liters of chocolate, it was the ultimate poison for it. The hellhound lays on the ground whimpering, unable to move. Vikir walks towards it drawing his sword, looking for where the ribs aren't present to target its kidney. The hellhound whimpers in pain as the sword pierces its body. Vikir does the final blow and a blue essence forms from the body. It was called XP or Karma, created when you catch monsters after energy accumulates in their body, making them stronger. Vikir absorbs it, making the short sword he wields lighter. Vikir is happy as he'll be able to catch up to his regression state before he is of age. He wonders what Hugo's face would make when finding out that an 8-year-old brought back a monster whose rate is B+. With this monster, Vikir secures first place in the practical test and has decided on what reward to get. The reward is a book that only he knew its true worth. Vikir proceeds to decapitate the head of the hellhound but senses a presence behind him. He turns to see 4 more hellhounds. He wonders if they came because of its cries and that they wanted to avenge it. Vikir chops off the head of the dead hellhound, excited at the thought of fighting more of the hellhounds as he had more beans left. However, a bigger presence is felt by the hellhounds, and Vikir notices. Believing the hellhounds to be afraid of his bloodthirst, the hellhounds bow their heads in fear. But hellhounds never submit even if they were to die. Vikir realizes something and turns around to see a 3-headed figure. A Cerberus. Vikir is alarmed as it has a rating of A+, but it was supposed to be at the 7th ridge. Why was it here, Vikir thought. Vikir notices wounds and blood dripping from its body. Multiple arrows with other injuries were inflicted upon the beast upon closer inspection. Vikir concluded that it was because of the barbarian tribes across the mountain as it was their territory and that it came all this way because of being chased by them. Vikir saw the chance of a lifetime. To hunt an injured A+ beast. He must kill it no matter what. Vikir had been hiding his power, having mastered the 3rd Baskerville technique and being at a high level as a sword expert. But he had already reached a level that no other hounds have reached when they had become adults. Vikir covers his blade in aura and dashes to the injured Cerberus. He attempts to slice one of its heads but was interfered with by its other head. He slices it in reaction. Upon slicing it, he realizes that killing it was possible. Due to the war with demons, Vikir was able to polish his swordsmanship, and there was no sign of unnecessary movements to his techniques. Add on his strengthened body from the river Styx. All weapons Vikir worked against the Cerberus. But that was what he thought. Reality hits him hard, as the Cerberus lands a deadly blow on Vikir, smashing his sword to bits. Vikir lets his guard down for a moment, resulting in a deadly blow from its claws. Vikir is flung straight into a tree. He coughs blood as his eyes turn white from the impact. He suddenly awakens, thinking if he had lost consciousness after the direct hit that was dealt to him by the Cerberus as it walks towards him. He feels the pain in his left arm, making him think that his arm had been ripped out. He checks to see and is surprised to see his arm still intact. He thanks the river Styx effect for keeping his arm. The Cerberus readies for another attack. It dashes toward him, smashing the tree that was behind into bits. Vikir leaps out of the way before it could harm him. He thought to himself, even though his arm was still there, the damage still remained and that wouldn't be able to take a second hit. The Cerberus turns around. With the odds against him, he thought of the situation as a journey that every experienced hunter must find a way out of. He thinks of the best possible action to take and decides to simply just run away as fast as possible. The Cerberus was alarmed seeing him running away. It chases after him. Vikir thinks that he was lucky that the Cerberus was injured, else he would have been torn apart by now as he continues to run away from it. He just has to make it past the iron fence, making him exit the restricted area. Vikir leaps over the iron face and readies himself to reach the place he had prepared beforehand as the Cerberus reaches the iron fence as well. If he was caught before reaching that place, it would be the end for him. The Cerberus rips apart the iron fence with its face, roaring loudly as it continues its chase. Dashing through the trees, he looks around to spot the area. He notices a pile of wood in front of the tree, making it the area where he was supposed to be. He runs with all his might, just a little bit further, he thought to himself. A bit more. He screams as the Cerberus chases right behind him. Realizing it was the perfect moment, he leaps into the air just as the Cerberus opens its mouth to attack. A single step forward onto a marking causes it to sink into the ground. Vikir lands on his back, safe from its attack, breathing heavily. While the Cerberus was met with many spears hidden in the ground below. He welcomes it to the cradle of swords. Wiping the sweat off his face, he was happy that the traps he made for hellhounds were useful against the Cerberus. Bloody beans were spread onto the spears that were in the ground. Being the same species as the hellhounds, the Cerberus was poisoned easily as its two heads cough vomit and are in pain. Its middle head notices Vikir, growling at him. As he holds a spear aimed at it and throws it with all his might. The spear bounces off its body as it growls loudly toward Vikir. Vikir starts to count down from 7. With each step the Cerberus took, a second passed. It slowly reaches Vikir as the countdown approaches 0. Once it reached 0, it simply fell to the ground. Vikir lets out a sigh of relief as the Cerberus falls to the ground just before him. Happy to know that the rumors were true about the 7 steps. He explains that the spear he threw was different. That it was laced with the poison of the bloody mamba's venomous fang from when he was a baby. He goes on to absorb the mana from the Cerberus, meaning that it was fully dead this time. He stares at its corpse, thinking about how he should bring it back. But before that, he had something else to do. He knew that the presence of a Cerberus meant one thing: dungeon. Since its gatekeeper was dead, the dungeon was free to be explored. Vikir proceeds to cover himself in dried soil, rotten leaves, and moist roots. Looking at its footprints and drools, he backtracks it. He walks to an opening, saying he found it. He enters the cave, recalling that the cave was meant to be discovered in a few years' time. He stares deep into the cave, feeling its mana underneath the rotten surface, knowing that it has not been discovered yet. No light was given out, making the cave seem deeper than he thought. He smiles happily, excited at